amazing. One of the people before I started cooking that I got into. Let's watch this video. I'll probably have some pointers. I don't know what I'm eating. That's probably bad. I shouldn't eat. But who cares? Let's watch the freaking master himself, Jacques motherfucking Pepin, prepare an omelet.
If I had to judge how good technically a chef is, I probably would ask him to do an omelette. It is difficult to make a real good omelette, and there is different type of omelette. I'm going to show you two type of omelette. Omelette, which is basically the way we do it in America, and then a classic French omelette.
At this point, he's cool because he's moved to America from France. This man cooked for Charles de Gaulle, another freaking huge man in history.
I'm doing an omelette with 4 eggs here. In the first one, salt, dash of pepper. All I'm going to do is to stir it well first and cook it so that I have fairly large curd of egg and slightly brown all around.
Slightly brown. You know, I've been described as slightly brown before.
Country-like. A little piece of butter in there. And I have here a beautiful pan, because that pan doesn't have any corner. You see, it has a beautiful sway. It's a non-stick pan, so it's ideal. It's an omelette pan, actually. Now, notice that my eggs, to start with, I have no pieces of egg white hanging. So it's not like you just stir the eggs back and forth. You have to go from one hand to really break it so that you don't have
he has to break them, you know,
of egg white. Otherwise, you have those,
like you say,
becoming white in
Chris
the plate,
Brown some eggs
in the skillet as it cooked. So what we do here in the country omelette, let it brown a little bit.
Yeah, you want to brown those up.
The butter here will be brown a little bit, which in the classic omelette I don't want to brown. So clean up.
But you know,
your pan
brown is beautiful.
And here you don't have to worry too much. You move it occasionally to take the large curd like this, and those large curd replace them by liquid. This will be totally different in the classic French omelette, where I move the mixture very, very fast as I can, to have the smallest possible curd. No browning at all, because the browning will toughen the albumin. I want something very tender and very soft in a classic French omelette.
I've been described as tender and soft,
is different.
For those who know.
Now, how long do you cook it? It's entirely up to you. You can see wet in the center. I like it a bit wet. I would say that here my omelette is still a little bit wet here, which is the way I like it personally. I would probably brown it just a minute or so, then kind of fold it in half like this.
Oh, fuck, he's a master.
I would, at that point, maybe put a little piece of extra butter, if I want, in the bottom here to brown.
And look at how he's using like metal. People say you can't use metal with non-stick. It's called not being a little bitch and not scraping it up. That's what you call it.
You change
can still do it.
You grab the handle this way, you bang it a little bit to make it slide to the end, and you turn it upside down. You have a nice, beautifully brown omelette. This is a country omelette, but you can see fairly large curd and all this. One way of doing it.
Yo, I'm sure that's Dankosaurus
now,
Rex for anybody who's watching. It's probably Dankosaurus Rex.
Different. First,
hashtag Dankrub. That's my that'll be my hashtag that I made up. You can check me out at Yukons Black Comic on Instagram.
This is what I want for an omelette, and as you see, it is a gas stove, and of course the gas is going to be much better than electric, because you want to have the flame to go around, and a good stove should give you a great amount of heat for an omelette, as well as a very low setting if you want to simmer something. So there again I have 4 eggs. In that omelette this time I put a little bit of chive, actually a classic omelette fines herbes, fine herbs omelette in France. You have chive.
Yo, just before we do that, did anybody just check out the freaking just the knife skills on that guy? Like how he just, like, everything in there was just perfect. Like it wasn't even like, holy shit, this guy's a fucking G.
Chive, parsley, tarragon, and chervil, which is a classic. This one just a chive omelette. So you can see here that my pan is hot, but I don't want it as hot as the other one. So again,
hot but not brown. That's how he throws down.
And now, contrary to what I did before, the eggs get into large curd here with the bowl of.
Once again, yo, uses a friggin' metal fork, cause Jacques Pepin is not. He doesn't scrape shit. Like you can hear it, but he's not. Wow, he's just a fucking G, man.
The fork, I want to bring this around and stir it as fast as I can. smallest possible curd, and at the end of it, like now, I want to bring all of the mixture I bring on this side. As you can see, basically everything is there. That is, instead of having one layer, which I roll like a carpet, everything is there. Run my knife around, bring back the lip, and you can see here, I want to have a nice half-moon shape. Run this behind to bring back that lip. Hit it there.
Boom, boom, boom,
as you can see, bring it up, then push it down. You want a nice corner, and you don't even want to brown the lip or the stuffing. Change hand again. This way. Next, invert it to have a number that should be white. Pointed at the end without any pleat. Taste. The curd is going to be much harder here, and if I want to show it to you, then you will see that the center of that omelette is very creamy, soft, very nice.
So creamy.
Which is the way the classic omelette should be.
Which is the way the classic omelet should be, eh? Yo, what's next? If you're just joining now, I am just watching. I love him. I say every night. I say, Jacques, you sleep. Can you help be the best cook and make my food the dankest? Okay, let's watch this nigga debone a turkey.
And now what I'm going to show you, again, it's...
You guys, chat, can you tell me?
First thing to do too, you remove the wing like that. Those wings actually we can do.
Yo, look at the guys he's using. He's Sabatier, but he's not using anything like crazy yet, right? Like he hasn't like gotten to the point where knife things are like people become knife snobs. Oh fuck.
Please, you hold it this way. This, put your hand like this. And you break it at the joint here. There is the joint here. You want to break it at the joint this way. Then put your thumb in the back and pull. You see the two bone comes out. Then you remove that part of the hand like this, which you're going to use for stock. And one of the two bone you can pull out.
Uses for
which
stock.
I'm doing here.
Once again,
now you're left with one bone.
We use
that
the
piece
whole
of thing that
chicken.
you turn inside out to do what we call a little lollipop. That little lollipop, often you roll that in cracker meal, something like that. You can fry it, serve it into a beautiful leaf of cabbage, for example, Savoy cabbage, to use it as a finger food, you know, for a party. If you buy at the market the whole wing, like I have here, I will do a lollipop with that part, and I will do a lollipop with the part that I did here.
Yeah, we've had to do that.
You see?
The thing is, too, like, whenever you see lollipops in restaurants, they're just doing this, right? They're not actually, like, getting lollipop or chicken on the menu, and that's what they're using, which makes sense. Use the whole fucking animal. Don't be a...
But for our chicken here, I do all of this. So again, you break it, you pull it out, separate your bone, pull one of those out, that's it. Now here, I want to bone this out. And first, I want to remove
I want to bone some things out too.
Triangle again, that we call the wishbone. So I put my knife against it and pull it out. Again, as I see here, it is broken. Very often, the wishbone is broken now because they press it on the machine when they pluck it, and that break the wishbone. And again, as I said, be careful because the end is very pointed and you can puncture your finger. But the wishbone is that triangle, which actually, even when you roast a chicken, right there is in the way during your carving, so it's good to remove it, even when you do a turkey for that matter. What I have here, now, the only thing that I want to do is to take the whole carcass out. Very much. The biggest mistake is to use a knife very much. All I have to cut is the joint of the shoulder here, and the joint of the hip there. So I cut here, there, here, there on the other side. With the knife, that's about it. Now, since I want to open it completely, I start by I look for the joint of the shoulder. Lift up the skin, put your finger there and move that chicken like that. I know there is an articulation right there. I can feel it. So I put the knife right where the articulation is and I start cutting. I am into it now, but if I were not sure that I am into it, I would wiggle the knife a little bit and I would slide into it. So I do this side. You do the same thing on the other side. It should not take you much more than a minute to bone out a chicken. The thing is done both ways. What do I do now? I grab the whole wing, put my finger through the carcass, and I kind of pry it out this way, you know, until I see the little oyster. So again, here I pull out until I see the oyster. Thing on the other side. Pull out until I see the oyster. Now what do I have? The front of the chicken. Don't worry about the fillet, we'll remove them later. Put your two fingers on each side of the sternum and you pull down this way until the whole front of the carcass is clean.
Holy shoot.
Put it down again.
Wow.
Now you grab your chicken by the leg here. Again, you cut that little oyster this way. Bring the knee higher,
you know very well
so you can crack it open, cut through the sinew, pull out. Same thing on the other side, cut the oyster, break it.
Oh, okay. I see.
And pull out. What do I have now? I have the chicken, basically the whole carcass, bone out, as you can see now.
I like to eat animals. That's not for everybody. You know what I mean?
Carcass is removed.
It's a big world. You live in Germany.
And what do I have here?
I've been to Germany.
I run my finger.
Where are you from in Germany?
Along. Again, no use of the knife, as you can see. You know, my finger, that's it, along the bone, removing again that fillet. I have the whole carcass here. What I have cut is the joint here
and there. I've only been to Frankfurt.
That corresponds, that's for stock,
because I grew up in the...
That corresponds to those four
Bavaria,
bones. This is the place where it's being held. That's it. Now, if I want to use the fillet here that I want to use, there is that long sinew into the fillet that I want to remove. What you do, you hold, I don't know if you can see here, the end of that sinew, you hold it with a towel, put your knife flat, and what you're going to do is just to scrape it, you see.
Oh shit, this is cool, check this out.
I scrape it, and now I have that old sinew which was inside the fillet.
Bug. That's another thing that's
then
so much
the fillet goes back into
easier
shape.
said than done.
This is
Once
done.
again,
You
this
do,
guy's
of
an
course, the same thing with the fillet
when it comes
from
to the ship.
Turkey or something like this. I have to take the bone of the leg. So what do? I take the to grab it, you know. But I don't cut much. I won't use much knife. I use the side of the knife. Now, you can hear it. I'm scraping the bone.
Very leggy.
That's all you do. Scraping the bone. So I scrape the bone here until I am at the articulation of the knee. Now, I could cut the articulation of the knee, but it will be hard after to go on. So what I do on the contrary, now I cut all around the articulation.
For the most part.
You know, going with your knife like that, you go all around, and now that I have passed the articulation, then I start scraping again.
This is how I learned.
What do I have here? The thigh bone, the drum bone. Where am I? Am I here? Now, I don't want to cut this now because the skin is going to shrink during cooking and break it so that you can remove that and keep this. When your galantine is cooked, you can trim it later on. So we do this. Again, the same thing on the other side. Remember that when you do this, in terms of technique, the techniques are the same each time. If you do a quail, if you do a duck, if you do a pheasant, if you do a chicken to saute, if you do a chicken to grill even, or other type of pheasant, you always cut into the same joint to separate it. So it becomes very important. Even to carve in the dining room, you always cut into the same place. Again, I remove the wishbone. Now, the only thing left is the bone here, which sometimes we leave, sometimes we remove. If you want to remove it, I'm holding it
underneath.
Fighting
the fight, my brother. Are you a fellow?
Now I can stand the bone on its own and press it down like this, as you can see, and pull it out. I can flap that back into it. The same thing here.
Solidarity forever,
push
brother.
It down, and now my chicken is totally deboned. I mean, the idea there is to have the same layer of meat all over. So I'm placing this here to reorganize Mother Nature a little bit. If you want to have some there, you can lift up a little bit of the breast here. The idea, as I said, to have one layer of skin, one layer of meat, which you can then stuff. What we want to do here is put a little bit of salt and freshly ground pepper. And there I have a stuffing of, very simple stuffing of spinach and puree of mushroom. What you want to do is to push a bit of that stuffing into the leg.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember to stuff your leg here.
Oh,
and
check
then
this
the
out.
rest, one type of stuffing, of course, that you can do. This happens to be a whole vegetable stuffing. You can do it with meat, you can do it with liver, you can do it with pate, you can do it with all kind of different vegetables.
Yeah, like, I don't know,
Now,
like, so
I
many
have
of the
that
problems
layer.
we face
Bring it
today
around.
are like just a
See, a common,
consequence of like
way of
capitalism,
doing
just
it to that
unfettered
is to sew the
capitalism.
back, but I don't think it's necessary, because if you slightly overlap it like this, I have a bit of skin here that I can bring around and turn your chicken upside down like this. Bring the skin here, cross
Oh,
his
fuck, look
leg,
at this.
and
Just
now
cross the
again,
legs.
I'm ready to do the galantine or ballotine here. You can do that at the pate. So now we bring that around flat. Make a knot right at the end
I'm in my
here.
late
Keep a
20s.
piece right there. And now we do the technique we call the half hitch, which is just this.
He's playing
But
50
when you do
Shades of...
the loop like that, grab that loop.
he's playing 50 Shades of Chicken right now. He has different tastes. I have different tastes.
Underneath gently. Then bring it here and ease it into
That's
it.
fine.
Just
He'll
don't
live to
pull
be
on
80.
it. Again, slide it underneath. You make it just as close as you want. You don't want to squeeze it too much. If you have a stuffing, it depends on your stuffing, especially if you have eggs in your stuffing and raw meat, because it will tend to expand a little bit, you know. So here is...
Are you vegan or...
I have my thing done. So when I get to the end of it, all you do is to cut with your knife, very gently slide it over. If I don't have enough skin here, you know, try to bring a little piece of the skin against it. And if my stuffing is not leaky here, but if it was a leaky stuffing and I would be afraid, I put a little
Yeah,
piece
it's
of
hard.
aluminum foil right there.
I'm going to do a vegan
You
stream
do
where
the
I...
loop underneath to the bottom, fold it again.
Right now, I'm just
gently
doing
and
some
attach
basic
it
Jacques
wherever you
Pepin
start.
videos. This week, I'm probably
You
going to
now
watch some vegan videos, you know?
what we call un poulet
So
en
what this
saucisse
channel's all about is
or
just
a
watching
galantine.
food.
You can do
chatting
that
about
ahead, and now
leftism.
you're ready to cook it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what's next? What's next? Oh, what's a good... Oh, we're going to invent friendly...
Out with that famous French onion soup gratiné.
Right.
You're going to do the onions.
We start with onion. I have about a pound of onion here.
How many is this going to serve?
So we got Julia
I would
Child
say
here
that would
and
serve
Jacques
6
Pepin.
people. You have a
Good.
pot ready for me?
I do. I'll put
So I got a pot of
vegetable
onion.
oil in it here.
We are.
Her
A little salt,
husband
pepper
was in
there.
the
Yes.
Herb.
Foreign
You know
Service.
what I put also? I put
And,
a little bit
she
of thyme leaves.
That would be
was
nice.
Here we
These
are.
onions
was a
are
chef.
gonna cook
She
slowly
made French
first
cooking
so
like
that they're
accessible
all
to the Americans.
cooked through tenderly, which will take about 8 to 10 minutes over a moderate flame. Then you brown them, but it's very important that they get thoroughly cooked.
And you really want it nice
They
and
just did a
dark,
tap.
very rich color. Like. So now we put the stock.
Yeah, this is Canada.
That's it. Put your onion football on this because it tends to spill over and all that, and you make a mess. How much crouton you put in there?
Is
Put
there
about
room
3 in mine here.
for
It says
room
it's
for
good
that
on
one?
my end.
The
Cut
bread
pretty
gives
thin.
it a thickening that's very nice.
Right. Okay. So this, bring back to a boil. I mean, the chicken suck is cooked. Do you want to taste it?
How long should this cook?
Whoa,
You think
whoa,
half an hour
whoa.
to
Is that
get
who I
in?
think it
Not
is?
even. The onion have been.
Listen to
salt,
Lilo
right?
and Bitch?
And a bit
Hot.
of
No.
pepper. And I'll
Is
let
that
you put
Chad?
the wine in it because this is your touch. Sometimes actually I've seen done with a bit of white wine, but never with a bit of red wine.
Well, it gives it a nice color.
Get it darker, yes.
Nice. Oh, Jacques like not
and
so
which
down.
cheese
He's
do
like,
you like to
sometimes
put on
I
top?
see it with this, but
Oh, we have
fuck you. Okay, I don't know why you're doing this.
Close to a cup of grated cheese per person. I think this is the Emmentaler, right? Both are Swiss
Holy
cheese
shit,
anyway.
that's a lot of
Yeah.
Gruyere. Oh,
So you really
just,
want to
just
pile
piling it
up
on.
top. And those onions soup bowl have a kind of little border here, and it holds the cheese this way.
Fuck,
so I'm going to
absolute
put that
chads.
in the oven around 400 degrees, and that will take.
No,
a
she's
good
in her late
35,
80s
40
there.
minutes.
That's why.
Smells good. I think it's ready. It's nice and crusty here. Whoop.
30 to 40 minutes, wasn't
Yes,
it?
at least, yes. As you can see, really hot. So we put it on the plate here. I mean, you have a thick crust here,
No.
which is basically what you want.
And
that
it
thick
smells
crust.
so good with all that cheese.
So good. With a glass of red wine, a piece of
That's what we
cheese.
serve.
Or maybe no cheese, but a fruit, and you have a meal.
That's real hot.
And good.
You have asbestos mouth. Oh, I don't have to wait a minute. It smells so good.
She's in her 80s.
Mm,
That's good.
that's a real dish.
Yo. What else? Oh, yo, see, this is her young.
This is soupe à l'oignon gratiné.
That was like-
I'm just
that was
putting
like her,
a lot of
like, thing.
cheese on the top of it, and then a little bit of goes on,
Oh, shit.
and then it's going to go into the oven, and it's going to bake so all the cheese melts, and it's going to come out wonderfully browned and beautiful smelling. We're doing making your own onion soup today on the French Chef.
So she had this like TV show back in the day where she would just cook her way up. Using all the right technique. Another absolute cooking Chad.
The French Chef is made possible by a grant from Hills Brothers Coffee Incorporated and a grant from the Polaroid Corporation.
I freaking love these old commercials. This made.
Welcome to the French Chef. I'm Julia Child. Whenever you do French onion soup, you just need an awful lot of onions. And if you're going to have an awful lot
I know,
of
right?
sliced onions, you've got
It's a
to have
different
good,
time. It was a different
sharp
time.
Knife. And the kind of knife that is used by most professionals for chopping is wedge-shaped, and it's called a chef's knife.
I have that knife.
This one, which I like very much because it's so nice and heavy that it does most of the work for you.
Here's
has a
mine. It's
blade
Japanese,
11
though.
inches long. But you can use a shorter knife like this, which is 7.5 inches long. But if you have
Mine is,
these two sizes, 11
it's about,
and
13.
7.5 inches, you can slice and chop up just about anything you want.
Showing
And
off chef's
whenever
knives, you know.
Have them.
I
When
won't.
you're going to buy knives, you have to be sure that you get a knife that will cut. You often hear people say that a knife is supposed to hold an edge, but if you watch your butcher and he's always sharpening his knife all the time, you know that you can't get a knife that will hold an edge.
That's right. That is right. A knife that will
Or
sharpen.
plain old-fashioned rustable steel called carbon steel. And that's what these are. These are French ones, and I've had them for an awfully long time. But you can now buy them in quite a few of the import or at
Few of the import
hardware and
shops. I love
kitchenware
that.
stores.
You
And
can
if
now
you
buy them in quite a
can't
few
seem
of
to
the
find
import
what you want,
shops.
ask your butcher, because he'll know where to get good knives. And again,
I love how
if
it's
you
he'll
watch
know.
your
It's not
butcher, you'll
she'll
notice
know.
that he's
It's
always
he'll know.
sharpening his knife. And to do that, he uses
That's the way her voice is, man.
a butcher's
It's
steel.
that was a part of
And
her
this-
charm.
And be sure when you get yourself a butcher's steel, get a great big heavy-duty one.
Doesn't it
This
sound
has
like-
a steel that's 12 inches long, and it has a guard up here, and that is so that when you're holding the steel and you sharpen the knife, you won't come in there and just cut your hand off. And then it has a handle and hang it up by. I got this at my hardware store, and it cost just about $2. And when you sharpen it, you go on each side of the steel, and your knife you raise about a 20-degree angle, see, just about like that, and you come down and up, down and up, always at
Down
the
and up,
20-degree angle.
down and up, which is also the way I fuck.
On the other side of it, which is down and up, this kind of a movement. And if your knife is very dull, you can go sort of 1 or 2 times on each side, and then finish off like this. And then the knife is so sharp that when you feel it, it feels very sharp. And also if you just
a knife is sharp
lay it
because
on
it
top
feels
of the tomato,
sharp.
just the weight of the knife will cut through the tomato. Or if you laid it over your hand and just drew it across, the weight would cut your hand right down to the bone. In other words, is a tool. And
I love that. A knife is sharp because it feels
really,
sharp.
They're your life.
That's the motto of the day.
Because it makes them.
A knife is
it's
sharp
so much
because
easier
it
to
feels
cook if you
sharp.
have sharp knives. In fact, I find usually when I go visiting and I'm asked to cook, I can't find any sharp knives, so I always take my own with me so I can.
I did the same thing, Julia. I take my own knife with me.
Have sharp knives, but they're so easy to sharpen, and they're not very expensive. But when you do get good knives and keep them nice and sharp, you really have to care for them
feel
like
something.
a baby. After you are used, after
Damn
you
fine
finish
with the
cutting
fucking
with
jokes.
them, you should immediately wash them by hand. And the carbon steel ones stain quite easily. I've got one here that I rub with lemon juice, and it just looks awful. But it's very easy to clean. You just take some steel wool and dampen it just very slightly, and wring it out, and take some
Expensive.
rub it over the knife hard. See, that's just you let the knife something like that on it. It will immediately stain, but as you can see, that
The fuck is with my
cleans off
internet?
very easily, and then
Goddamn
put it
Canada,
under
like.
water. Or get into the habit of always
What do I
having
pay
a
for
blunt
this?
edge against your hand. If you have the
Oh, we're
sharp
good
edge,
again.
you could just cut your hand right in two. So
Guys,
get in
remember,
the habit
don't
of that,
grab the sharp edge.
of using correct and then dry it off. You don't ever want to put a good knife in the dishwasher, and you don't ever want to wash it in the sink with a whole lot of other instruments, because if you do, it will other things will bang against the edge and break it off. And for that very same or what's awfully good are these magnetic knife holders like this. See, it just sticks on the wall like that. And this one's a very strong one. This is both for tools and knives. They have rather fancy looking ones that aren't as strong as this, but be sure that get one that is both for tools and knives, and then you'll find that your knife will just stay on, and you'll never have any trouble about hurting the edge. Then, when you're going to chop onions, once you got your sharp knife, you want to be able to chop things very fast, like this.
Yo, that knife, though, legit is the truth.
See how fast
Oh,
that
shit.
goes? And then
She
your
doesn't
onions
play.
are all in slices.
Yo, check it out. She
This
doesn't
is
play.
something that you have to practice on, and I'll show you how you start out. You take your onion and you cut it through at the root end, like that, and you lay it flat, and you take a few little slices
Oh, yeah, she
off
was.
the root,
She was ahead of her
a few little
time.
slices off the stem end, and then laying it flat again, there's your thumb at one end, and put your fingers at the other end, and your fingernails.
And this was a time when
are
there
bent
wasn't
back, and
women
there
cooking
are your
in this
knuckles
sense,
sticking
right?
out a
Remember
little bit,
that.
and those act
Like,
as
the
a
kitchen was a
guide.
man's game. Like, women
Your
were in, like,
knife
the
you
home
hold
kitchen, don't get me
with
wrong.
your
But the
thumb
kitchen
and
was a
your
man's
forefinger on
game.
the top of
And
the
she wrote,
blade,
like, her
and
cookbook
your
is still used to
fingers
this day. If you
gripping
can get her
around the
cookbook,
handle.
it has all
You
these
don't
recipes. It's amazing.
Put your finger on top of the blade. You have it under the blade. This
Hey,
may seem a little
don't
bit
put your
awkward
finger
at
on top
first,
of the blade. Have it
but
under the blade.
The object of this is that your knife should be an extension of your hand. And if you have your finger on it like that, you don't have quite as much wrist movement as you do when you're this way. So practice holding it this way, and in about
Are your jokes like
several
food?
days,
Not
it will
everybody
feel
gets it?
Convenient. And then when you chop, you come straight down like that and out. Down, out. That's the reason you have this wedge shape. See, I'm coming against my knuckle like that, and then I'm.
What are you guys talking about now in chat?
Fingers back a little bit at each chop.
Latte Master, are you memeing on
guides you.
Damn Fine?
I'll do another one. There's the cut side down, and then cut off this little root end, and then cut off the little stem end, and then bracing it with your thumb, and your fingers pointed back, and your knife held this way, come straight down. You'll have to start doing slowly at first, and then gradually get.
You notice how you can hear her knife? You can hear it like that too. It means it's also.
You see, if you have really mastered your knife, and this will probably take you maybe a week or maybe 2, you can really plow through.
You can really plow through.
Really 5 less. But these are the kinds of things, if you're going to do any serious cooking, this is the dog work that you should that you should practice on and get, so that you can do it just as fast as possible. Because then you won't be upset if you have a recipe.
You know, I love plowing my food.
8 cups
I love plowing my
thinly sliced onions. It's very easy
guys,
to do,
but
and
don't,
you rather enjoy it.
Please don't make love to your food. People like to eat it.
Take a pride in. See, now as soon as
Doesn't anybody love how there's windows in a TV set?
I'm finished, I dry the knife, and be sure to dry it also that way, so that the sharp end is away from you. And now we're going to do onion soup for 6 to 8 people. So we want 5 to 6 to 8 cups people. Of onions, or that would be 1.5 to 2 pounds of.
Right, you necrophile.
And I think that's one of the main reasons, is because I've got this great sharp knife, and it cuts right through the onions, and so they don't splatter. If I had a dull knife, the onion juice would splatter up into my eyes. And now after you've cut all the onions, you can get the onion taste off your hands very easily. Wash them first in cold water, rinse them off, and then sprinkle about a teaspoon of salt in your wet hands, and then rub the salt in, and wash it off, and then wash it again in warm water.
Dude, you guys watching this?
And if you find
That's
that
a hack.
you still have a little bit of onion on your hands, just repeat the process. But I think you'll find that this will get all the onion off very easily. And now, when you've got all of your onions chopped up, you're going to then cook them in a soup called brown. And we have 5 to 6 cups for 6 people. And we're going to cook them in oil and butter. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of cooking oil and about 2 tablespoons of butter. And then in go the onions. And now I think you'll find with this onion soup, if you're going to make it all yourself, you're going to get much the best flavor if you use fresh onions, because you want to get.
Guys, you'll be the best flavor if you use
the most
fresh
flavor
onions.
that you can.
Salt in my wet hands, you'll
And
be
then
okay.
you want to stir. And then to brown onions, you do it in 2 steps. The first one is called in French étuver, which means cooking the onions until they're tender. And then after you've cooked them until they're tender, then you brown them. But to do this étuver, or cooking until tender, you cook them over moderate heat with a cover on. Because if you right now, brown sort of raw onions, and they wouldn't taste very good.
You don't want brown raw onions. I'm a brown raw man.
Doing the onions, this part takes somewhat of a long time, but it's this, if you're making your own onion soup, which is so very important, is to brown them properly. So cook them covered for about 20 minutes, and then when they're done, they've cooked down, and see the difference. 6 cups now have cooked down to about, say, about a cup
Holy
and a
shit,
half.
she's using aluminum pans. That's how you freaking
And they're nice and tender. And you could, at this point, you could use
buy
the
damn fine.
onions to make a white onion soup if you wanted to. And then when they've cooked down this way, you are ready to brown them. And for that, you set them over moderately high heat. It's about 20 to 30 minutes to brown them properly. And to help them brown, you add a little pinch of sugar, and you also add some salt. And I left the salt way over here while I was washing my hands. You don't want very much sugar, but just this little tiny bit, about, say, half to a quarter of a teaspoonful. The sugar will caramelize, and that helps the onions to brown. And then we'll put in about a teaspoon. And then you have to keep stirring them fairly frequently. So, in other words, when you're cooking them, stay quite near them. And you'll notice
If you're cooking,
as they
stay
start
near it. Don't
browning,
go
they
away
will
from
begin,
it. Stay near it. Don't
attaching
pull a
over
black
to the
stepdad
bottom
and run
of the
away.
pan. Be sure that you have a heavy bottom pan. Otherwise, you have a thin bottom pan, you find that the
Okay,
onions will
I should
burn
stop
on
that.
the
It
bottom.
normalizes black
Then you
jokes.
just
That
keep
was bad. That was
stirring
bad,
them
but
around,
it was funny.
and finally they will brown and look like this. And this is amazing. I'll take these things out so you can see. But look at how little there are of those onions that you started out with,
I know, right?
5 or 6 cups, because there's so much water in them.
And onions.
So when you have your onions browned like this,
Smother
just
or hamburgers,
perfectly
just like
delicious, just the way
taking
they
a
are.
steak and just being like,
Now we're ready to start making a soup out of them. And we want about
the last
3
thing a steak
tablespoons of
sees.
flour in, because this gives the soup a little body and thickening. So that's 1 heaping tablespoon and 1 level tablespoon, and that makes 3 tablespoons.
So she's
And
doing.
this you want to cook.
She's want to cook out your flour. Most people, when they're making this soup,
sort of moderate
they
heat, and if you
get
find that
to
you don't have quite enough butter, you just
gung-ho,
add a little bit
and
more,
they
because you want to
freaking
make a paste of
skip
it.
through
You
this
want to
step.
cook
You
the
gotta let
flour
this.
and brown it lightly.
You gotta brown it when you're with your roux, or it will taste like flour, and no one wants a thing that tastes like flour. Make sense.
Also, you don't want to. You want to
Why
do
is my internet
rather
shit?
slowly. You would cook about 2 or 3 minutes, but when you do it, you do 2 or 3 minutes until it's slowly.
Funny they have electric though.
You're ready to add the liquid to it. And if you
Add
were
the
to do
liquid to
onion
it.
soup yourself, it would be too bad to use canned stock with it, because it has beef stock. If you had canned stock, then it would taste just like canned onion soup. So you might just as well have started out with canned onion soup in the first place. And so you'd have a homemade stock, and this is a great
That's a good
mixture
point.
of beef
If you use
shanks
canned
and
onion soup
chicken
stock, it'll
necks
taste like
and
canned onion
water
soup.
and vegetables, and it's simmered for 5 or 6 hours. It looks awful, but it's perfectly delicious. And I gotta have
That should be on my freaking
about
like
6
shirt.
cups
Like
in all.
looks awful, but I'm perfectly delicious.
Nicely with the flour, and also so that I've scraped up all the brown, sort of brown onion juices in the bottom
Gotta scrape
of
with
the
the
pan.
brown onion rule, say.
As a matter of
Scrape
fact,
it
I
up.
think I should
Scrape it
stir
up.
that up
Scrape it up.
with a wire
Scrape it up.
whip to make
Scrape
sure
it
that
up.
the flour is
Scrape it up.
all
Scrape it up.
mixed
Scrape it
up
up. Scrape it up.
nicely.
Scrape it up. Scrape it up. Scrape it up. Scrape it up. Scrape
And
it
then
up.
the rest
Scrape
of
it
the
up. Scrape it up. Scrape it
the
up.
rest of the stock goes in about 6 cups. We've a lot of them. Particularly, I remember a great turkey stock. Just save all the bones and things, and then buy a little bit of fresh meat, and all you need to do is just to put water and
Oh, dude,
carrots
fuck you,
and
Canada.
onions
Why are
and
you dropping
celery
out?
and salt in, and then just
I
simmer
blame
it.
Justin
And
Trudeau.
you come up with a perfectly beautiful stock.
I'm a perfectly
And then this, of course, is now only browned onions and beef stock. But you want to add some little French touches, such as wine and herbs. You can use either white wine or red wine. I'm going to use some California Mountain Red wine.
I love that little like
Put in
touch.
just
We're gonna add
about
some
a cup
California
there.
Mountain Red wine because I'm from
Well,
America.
that is quite a cup. I'll put in a little bit more. But it's all going to cook down. And then put in some herbs like a bay leaf. And I'm going to use about a half a teaspoon of powdered sage. And then that is to
Yo, guys,
cook
remember
very slowly. You don't
when,
even need to
using,
cover it. You can partially
powdered
let it
stuff?
cook very slowly for 30 or 40 minutes. to
America.
get all the flavor
When using
out.
powdered stuff,
And
put in
now,
a
if
third
you were
less than you
using,
use fresh because
canned or
powdered stuff's always
dehydrated onion
stronger.
soups, and there's some awfully good ones on the market. Just follow the package. Their own touches to it. Then
What,
put
is this
in
like a
some-
New England
some
accent?
wine and
Does
bay
anybody
leaf
else
and
know what this
herbs
accent
and
is?
let that simmer for 20 or 30 minutes, so that because you have to, when you're using wine, you have to let it cook out.
You have to let it cook
And
out,
then let it
or that's a white key
simmer
tag. For those who know, no.
until it tastes perfectly delicious, because it's cooked down, and that's all there is to the
Excuse,
and
but I was cooking
be
French
sure
onion
then
soup.
before you're
Don't
ready
matter,
to
Greg.
serve
Get a
it,
white key tag.
very, very carefully tasted. It has just the right amount of salt and pepper and everything else, and you can
Yo,
do it way
we had a
ahead of
baker
time
that
and
was
just let
doing
it
that.
sit if you
That
want.
was ordering
And you can
Baileys,
serve it
but he wasn't
perfectly
putting
plain,
Baileys
just
in
as it is.
anything
You
he
serve
was
it in
cooking.
soup cups with some French bread and cheese, or if you want to be very French, you will serve croûtes with it. And croûtes are spelled C for crust. T French bread, which are sort of nice and crisp, sort of hard toasted French
my
bread, and they're
CPU?
perfectly delicious. And I think they add a great deal to French onion soup. Now we're going to slice. This takes some homemade type white bread, French bread, if possible, and cut it into
Yeah, that would
1-inch
make sense.
slices.
It's a Midwestern
I'll
accent.
just make 4 of these.
Oh, dude, look at that baguette, though. Just putting butter on that. Oh, just...
Then place it on a baking sheet.
Butter. Did I fucking
And then
stutter?
you bake it in a 325 for 15 minutes. What I like to do is take a little light olive oil.
I like the fucking butter because I poser. Why is the internet awful
And
here
that's
in this
just
country?
half an hour in a 325 oven, and they're all made. And they come out just like that. And I always make quite a few extra ones because they're so good.
He's on jump.
What we're going to do also with these is onion. And this is going to be baked in the oven. You can use any kind of a casserole baking.
My mom.
This is
Holy
earthen.
that looks.
Which
If I have a kitchen,
typical, so I'm
when
gonna
I have
use
money,
that.
like in 30 years from now,
Now this
I
we
will have
say that
all like
this soup is
earthenware and
simmered
like
for 30 or
copper.
40 minutes and is
Oh
perfect
yeah, I'll be the
in
cutest
every
little freaking.
respect. And so you could serve it in this
The cutest little
casserole I
house
have, but I'm
husband.
just gonna be
But let me
fancy
dress
and
me up.
put it in a roll.
Hashtag love your house
all
husband.
the onion in.
I'll be the house husband.
Then you can add some more French touches, such as a little bit of
Problem is I won't be
cognac.
loyal though.
About 2
I'll
or
be a
3
little salute.
tablespoons. That certainly wouldn't ever hurt any soup at all, and that all cooks down. And then you can add some more, and this is particularly useful if you're using boughton soup. Take a raw onion and grate that, and you think you've had enough
Yo,
onions in, but this
what kind of
little
onion does
grated
freaking
raw
the old dirty
onion
bastard
has
like?
that je ne sais
He likes it
quoi.
raw.
And then so it'll be cheesy
Oh,
and sticky,
gosh.
you know, so that when you lift it up, it springs out. Take some Swiss cheese and just slice it. Well, this is probably I'll use about 2 ounces.
That's a
Slice
lot.
it
2
through
ounces.
with the grater.
much?
And that quality. And then just take toasted croûtes and they go on top.
56
And then the
grams.
cheese goes on.
56
A
grams.
combination of grated Swiss cheese
56
and
of
Parmesan cheese. And be sure
Swiss.
that you put a big thick layer on, like about ½ an inch, and be sure that you get all the toast covered, because when it goes into the oven, if you don't have all the toast covered, it's going to, some of the toast will burn. And then take a little bit of olive oil or melted butter and pour that over the cheese. And that helps it brown.
Let's figure out how much that is. 56
Then,
grams of Swiss cheese.
this should be done just at the last minute, and then you're ready to put it into the oven. And this bakes in a 350 oven. And this
56
bakes for
grams.
just about ½ an hour.
That's going to be more than Georgie can
I have
afford.
one here that's been baked for just about ½ an hour.
Just about ½ an hour. You know, they probably had like a team do that, or she could have done it. I
Out
don't
she
know.
comes. You see, that's all bubbling nicely.
It's all
But
boop.
the cheese hasn't
It should
browned very
bubble.
much. So then you put it under the broiler for just about a minute.
If you're,
Brown the cheese very
oven, but if
lightly.
you're using an electric oven, chances are I'd want
It's
to
so hot, I
keep
better
it
use
cracked, or you can like
pot
crack the
holders.
light bulb. It gets too hot. But gas, you should be fine. She's
I
using,
tried thinking that I could both brown the cheese
camera
at
guy
the
fucked
same
up.
time as baking it in the oven the other day, and I put one in a 425-degree oven and found that it bubbled up so much that all the croutons sort of got, so that didn't work at all. So I had to do it.
You don't want no
two
tumble
stages.
effect. That ain't dope.
And now, while this is browning, here, if you can, of course, serve the soup in little individual cups, and you don't have to gratinate it. And so you just put a croûte in the bottom,
You just put a croûte.
and then pour some
You would say that they just
onion
put a
soup
croûte
on
in the bottom.
top.
Yo, you can croûte my bottom. Just
and then
kidding.
just put on some cheese, and you can
Once again, if
serve
you're
it
gonna
like
croûte
that.
someone's bottom,
or if
ask
if
permission
you want to
and
make
wash your
more of a
hands.
meal of it, you can put the croûte on, and then you can put a poached egg on top of the croûte, and then
Poached
the cheese
egg.
on top of that. Now,
Julia, how
the way
much money
this
do you
is
think we
now,
have?
You could put, say, 2 or 3 croûtes in, and just bake and brown this in the oven. So you
Bake
have all
this, bake and
kinds
brown
of ways
this in the
to
oven.
serve it.
More
Now I
go,
better go
niggas
back
gonna love it. They be
before
loving
that.
it. We be eating food and we put it in the oven.
That was
Everybody loves
really
my shit.
browny.
Love it.
Oh, that's beautiful. There you are.
I'm baking this shit.
I think that possibly browned a little bit too much, but I don't know. It gives a very good effect. But remember, when you're going to do the gratin,
Yo, white peppers for
you can get the
suckers.
soup done as far ahead as you want. As a matter
Yo,
of
I was
fact,
watching
think
a
if you did
Jacques
it
video
then,
before
it would
this,
probably even
and you can tell when
taste
Jacques
better.
gets a little
But
annoyed,
don't
but
do
he
the
can't
gratin
because
until the very
I think it's
last
Julia's
minute, and
show.
you take it right into the dining room.
mocha.
Because you want it to be bubbling when it comes in.
Yo, I used to make jokes like that in the
Then
kitchen,
you're ready
and
to
they just
serve
tell me
it.
to get back to work.
You have a big ladle.
Oh, yo,
You
look at that.
usually
It's
have
still
to
bubbling.
Cut down through the top a little bit. And there you are. And that's a wine, and a very appetizing one. And if you want to serve wine, I think something like a California Mountain Red or a Beaujolais go extremely well with it. And this is such
That's
a
a hefty
gratination
pour there. You
because
see that home pour? You see that
it's
home pour
very
of wine?
rich with all that cheese and
Once again,
toast in
if
it.
I
really think you don't need
serve
much
this,
else on
I am in
this
trouble
meal
and
than a
find
green
me.
salad, and you might want to follow it with fruit. So this is really the soup that made the onion famous, and it's your own French onion soup, whether you started it from scratch or from out of the can. When you've added all these little French touches, who's going to know? So that's all for today on The French Chef. This is Julia Child. Bon appetit.
The French Chef has been made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation and a grant from Hills Brothers Coffee Incorporated.
That was amazing. Should we watch Beef Bourguignon or The Lobster Show?
Julia Child is co-author of the book Mastering the Art of French Cooking.
I think I'm going with The Lobster Show. Holy shit.
We're doing lobsters, eating and cooking today on the French Chef.
The French Chef is made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation.
Welcome to the
Dude,
French
look at the
Chef.
size of that lobster.
I'm Julia Child.
They don't make them that big anymore
Lobsters are
because you
certainly
fish them
a
all.
unique. And here's one of the very largest ones I've ever seen. They have a marvelous taste, and they're really just like absolutely nothing else. And they're actually so popular that even though lobsters come from the East Coast, they're flown all over the USA, and they even go over to Europe, and they travel very well. And there's such a very special gastronomic experience that I think that if you want to get the most out of lobsters, you have to know not only how to cook it, but how to eat it. And so we're going to do both cooking and eating. We're going to do one cold lobster recipe and one hot lobster recipe.
Yo, a hot lobster.
And lobsters,
That's
for
one of
those
my
of you who do
that's one of
not
my
come from
moves
New
in
England,
the
are caught
bedroom, if
in
you know what I
they
mean.
call lobster pots, which are big wooden cages like this.
Ah, transatlantic.
And the lobster goes in here, in this section, this half of the lobster pot room. He crawls in there, and then he smells all the bait, which is in the second part, known as the bedroom. And there's the bait, and when the lobster pot is pulled up from the depths of the ocean by the lobsterman, there it is, he hopes, full of lobsters. And when you're going to cook lobsters, they must be live. And the reason that they have to be live is because they go off very quickly. I'm going to get another one over here that I think is a little livelier than that one.
A little livelier.
Spread their arms wide and they
Do a
flap
lobster
their
hug.
tails usually.
The
As soon as you
lobster
get them out
hug.
into the light,
Lobster
they
hug
don't
is for the
like
Lord.
light. They begin to quiet down, but they should be very lively. There he
She's
is.
literally
Flap,
just
flap,
shaking them
flap,
up.
flap, flap. And that shows that he's a kind of boy that's worth buying.
Yo, we're watching that again.
They should be very lively. There he is. Flap, 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 flap. And that shows that he's a kind of boy that's worth buying. And when you buy lobsters, you do it by size. And the smallest is known as the chicken lobster, which is 1 pound. There's a little 1 pound lobster. And the next size is known as the select, which is 1.5 pounds. And then there is the jumbo, which is about 2.5 to 3.5 pounds. But you can see quite well the sizes there. And then you have the enormous lobster, the behemoth, which is this one. And this comes, look at it, this comes out from the deep sea. And this one, it weighs almost 20 pounds.
Holy shit.
And in the old days, in 1800, you hear writings about lobsters that were 5 and 6, 40 pounds. And in the 1900s, lobsters were very cheap. A chicken lobster like this, you could buy them for $1 a dozen.
You know why? Because we killed them
you
all.
buy them by
And
size.
now we're making them.
And the size depends on how you plan to cook them. If you're just going to cook individual lobsters for boiling to serve 1 per person, you use the chicken 1 pounder or a small select about 1.5
We get selects
2
back in the
pounds. It
Oxley, and I
depends
kill
on how big
one
the
like
appetites
every
are.
2 days.
And
The
if
weird
you're
thing
gonna
about killing
serve
lobsters is that
lobster thermidor for a party, you
at
could
first,
use a big jumbo like this, and half of a lobster
it's hard
would serve
to kill them, and then it
1
gets
person.
easier.
And if
which
you're going to
terrified
have a great big party, you can buy behemoth. And the weight of meat per lobster is 5 to 1. 5 pounds of lobster, 1 pound of meat. Now I want to show you a bit of lobster lore.
They used to give them
which
to
is
the prisoners and
sex
stuff.
of the lobster, which is rather fun. You have to pick it up and show the underside, and when you pick it up,
The history of food is the history of food that poor people eat.
Meet, right at the shoulder, and turn it upside down. It can't hurt you.
Yo, imagine being slave that like ask for the food. I've done this joke though. Like the slave master is just like, hey, what's over there? Hey, Toby, what you eating?
The ones that are just before the tail meets the chest, and if they're smooth and hard and pointed, it's a male. And you can see the difference between all of these other little swimmerettes are hairy, but the final ones are hard. If you can't see it on the screen, you can at least see it when you turn the lobster over and look at it. And as a contrast, here is a female, and you look at every one of the swimmerettes, little tiny ones have feathers on them, and that's because the female takes all the eggs with her feathered legs, and I mean her hairy legs, and spreads them around. So that's how you can remember. And the bands, the claws always have bands
you know that
or
behemoth
pegs
lobster?
in them so that
They can live to be like 200 years old.
And also so
like,
that they won't bite
it's
themselves.
fucked that we were killing old lobsters. They're virtually, they just keep on growing.
And you must keep them live until you cook them. And if they're shipped to you, they'll often be shipped in this kind of rockweed. And this is the seaweed that grows in their native habitat. And this is the best way of keeping them. Put this in a big box or pot. Put the lobsters in and cover them up with the rockweed and refrigerate them. And they will keep 3 or 4 days
Hide
very
the lobster.
nicely. Otherwise, keep them in a paper bag perforated with pencil. Allow them to breathe. And we're going to now do them the very simplest way, and that's going to be boiling.
Dude, she's going to murk some. Watch this. She's going to do it with a smile on her face.
Like these, the simplest way is the best. And I've got a big
Holy
boiling
shit,
water
here it comes, guys.
I'm going to put in a big salt. And then when you put the lobsters in, you want to put them in head first. And that's because all of the lobster's brains, hearts, and feelings are right here in the head. And so
all the hearts and
upside down, they're immediately killed.
They're not. They move around.
And if you have just a makeshift cover, put a weight on it like that.
So they don't get out because they're starving.
As soon as the waters come back up to the some various sizes, if you'd like to write them down. For 1.5 minutes, 25 minutes, and for a great big Bertha over here, 16 to 20 pounds is 45 minutes. And you know there's always a great discussion on what's the best way to cook lobsters. Some people say cold water, some people say boil it, some people say steam it. And steaming is this. In the steaming...
Okay, I'm going to stop the video here. One way you can do it too is that you can bring it to a boil, 7 minutes, then you don't put them in ice right away. You let them cool, not add it, and it gets a way nice flavor. Because when you put it in cold water to bring it down, a lot of the flavor escapes into the water, and you get a watery tasting lobster.
You see,
yeah, she's naming them.
Lobsters here, and I have them on a rack in about 1 inch of water, and you time them exactly the same way. And the water is boiling. You put the lobsters in, put the cover on, and wait until as soon as the steam begins to escape, and then set your timer, and they're ready. And you're ready.
You know what I love about this too is that
I've got one of these.
She makes mistakes, but they don't like make a cut. They keep on going because it makes it feel more real, right? Dude, How gangsta is that? She's bringing like one that was killed by the others. It was just there.
And now, one
Like,
of the great
fuck.
problems is how to tell when the lobster is done. Some people pull out the feelers, but I don't think that really tells you very much. One of the best ways to do is really just to lift the lobster up from the chest, from the tail meat, and just look inside. And you can see if the green matter has set. And
Sometimes they would have like undercooked them, and it's fucking
questions about
gross.
it. Another thing is to look at the tail meat. Some people say they can look at the tail meat and tell that rather than being translucent, it's opaque, and you can feel it. I find that I can't really tell anything about that. And then another method, which I think is a very good one, is to take one of the little legs, pull it off at the joint nearest the body, and then break it open. That meat is done, and if the meat comes from the leg, it is done. But I think, to me, one of the best ways is to take the lobster's temperature. If you have a little one of these,
That's the best way. This is actually the best way.
Put
Look.
it in the chest meat, and I find that at 165 to 170, it's done. Then also I take the temperature in the tail meat through that little hole.
That would be
That
about
says
70 Celsius.
165
I would just go with the
normal.
chicken rule. If it's 72,
But
you can
that's
put it inside
I
of
think
you.
also a very good test for the lobster. And one thing, look at the difference between the done lobster and the undone
Look what she's
lobster.
doing.
See, there you've got that beautiful blue-green, and here is the typical red.
Yo,
Now, another
imagine
thing
someone putting you beside a
that
cooked
particularly if you
human.
boil the
How
lobster,
terrifying that would
it's
be.
a good idea to drain it. If they've steamed, it isn't so necessary. Take a knife and plunge it right down through the and let it drain. Even just having been steamed, there's still some liquid that comes out of it. And I think this is particularly
Let it
necessary
drain.
if you're going to eat the
That's
lobster.
what she said.
Serve the lobster whole at the table so that there isn't so much water around. And now, we're going to do a cold lobster. I have one that is already cold. And if you're going to do a cold lobster, you simply let it cool.
Yo, you gotta let it
after you
cool,
boil it.
man.
Some people run a little cold water over it first, but you can do if
I
you
like to cool
Some
them
people
down by
feel
having
that
them
it
listen to some
sets the
Talib
meat,
Kweli
it
and stuff.
sets
That's
the
pretty
meat
cool.
and
That will
stops
cool
the
them down.
cooking. I think the best way to open lobsters are with shears. These are regular lobster shears with little pointed ends, and these are regular kitchen shears, both of
So
which
what I
have
usually do
pointed
is I
ends.
just go down the center
And
of the
also,
lobster with my
some
knife.
people
Just
like to open lobsters with a
But
cleaver
you
and
gotta
a
watch
hammer
out.
like that.
because it can.
But I'm going to
I
use
broke the edge of this knife and it made it go.
shears, and
Then
we're
I had
gonna
to
do
reset
a
it.
cold lobster with a very nice little saw. And so here is the lobster, and I'm going to start cutting it up. So
Cut
I
it up.
cut it
Cut it up.
right along
Cut it
the
up, cut it up, cut it up.
underside with the shears. I really think these were one of the very best inventions because it's so easy. First you cut the underside from the tail right up to the head, then you turn it over and you cut right along the middle center.
You know what I love about Julia
The
is
top
that she
part of
like
the
is
shell, right
sweet,
up to,
but she's also a
not
G.
quite
She'll
through
get the
the
shit
head.
done, right?
Then you take a knife
Excuse me.
and cut right down to separate the lobster in two lengthwise.
Dwayne.
Open it up. Now what you have here, I want to show you the parts. This up here is known as the sand sac, and this green material is known as the tamale. And there's usually a little black intestinal vein that runs right along that part of him, in this case. And this is a she because there's the red row running right down along the tail. Sometimes the row is blackish, and that's just because the eggs haven't been quite well formed. But the intestinal vein, if you see it in there, take it out, and then take this sand sac out, which is up in the head. This is really the stomach. And I want to show you another bit of lobster lore. If you take
Lobster
the
lore.
sac and wash it out, you'll see what is known as the lady. That doesn't show very well. I've got a big one. This is the lobster's stomach. Here you are. And can you see that's this
Lobster
part
lore.
does look like a lady. It looks like a little, as the fishermen call it, they call it a Madonna. There's her head, and that's a little veil coming down. There are two little breasts, and there are her legs.
Yo, how
You may not
lonely are
see it so well
fishermen?
now, but you'll
I
be
bet
able
you
to
some
see it
fishermen
when you
fucking
open
like
up the
fucking
stomach very carefully.
played a little 5-on-1
yourself.
to the lobster lady.
And
They're like,
we could
yeah,
call
man,
her
I just gotta
Our
go into the
Lady
bathroom
of
with
the
the lobster
Sand
for a
Sack.
sec, you know? Just gotta go
I
and
think that's
what are
a
you doing in
rather
there, Frank?
cute
Don't
thing.
worry
I
about it,
never
man.
knew about that before, but somebody wrote us about it and sent us one in an envelope. Now I'm going to do a very nice little sauce, which is going to go in the lobster, and I'm going to use the tamale. And that. So I'm just going to take the tamale and the roe, just taking it right out with a spoon.
Yeah, Ben and Alex couldn't have this.
Some people who have never even tried eating the tamale because they don't realize what it is. I think you want to be very careful and taste it first, because it should be have a lovely, fresh, nice taste. And if you've gotten lobsters from a very good place, everything should be fine about
Yeah, don't
them.
get it from the wharf
So
on
you
4th.
push that through a sieve, and you do that because sometimes there are little bits of sand or shell in it.
Okay,
And then
Hitman
we've got
Lethal,
some
you have a
very
bias.
thick homemade mayonnaise, which you know how to do, which go in there, and this all gets beaten up.
Beat it up. Beat it up.
And I'm going to put in a little bit of strong Dijon mustard, about a teaspoon. And then this is going to have some chopped parsley and chives and capers.
Oh, yo, this is dank shit right here.
If you don't have chives, you could use shallot or scallions.
Yeah, you can use any allium here, really. It's gonna work the same. But once again, the knife skills are better than most chefs I
I'm
know.
going to put in a few little capers here. I think it's nice to have little special sauces for things like fish and lobster, because it does dress them up.
I got a special sauce. It's called the famous creme de
Chop that
noir.
up fairly fine. And then that goes in here. Now what we have in here, we have the tamale, we have mustard, we have mayonnaise, and I'm going to put in a little bit of lemon, I think.
Just the tiniest bit of lemon.
Some,
So we're
and
gonna
some
put in a little
pepper.
bit of
After the
lemon.
mayonnaise is very nicely flavored. Just a drop of lemon in there.
Yo, chat, does anybody stream
Maybe
B-Boy
that's
events?
all I need to put in. I'll just taste it. Very nice. I love these sauces that are really nice and simple. Look at this claw.
Very nice
has,
and simple.
rather than a rubber
That
band,
was,
it has a wooden
I'm sorry.
peg in it.
That was bad. I'm sorry.
And there's the lobster.
It was a
nicely
joke, though.
salad.
Sat on its platter. We take it.
In goes
we
the
sat on a little
mayonnaise.
platter. Ate a plat, plate, plat, plate, plat, plate, plate, plat, plate, plate,
Into the
plate,
cavity there.
plate, plat, plat, plate, 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 plate,
And a lobster of this size, you could perfectly well. This one, if you were just having it as a first course, there's a little bit that's come out. One lobster would perfectly well do for 2 people. This is a good, maybe 2 pounds. Now,
Yo, when was the last time you had 2 courses? Oh, I guess I'm a
Chopped
lonely
egg.
man. I guess people do that, right? I don't know.
on the tail meat here, to keep it dry and also to decorate it a little bit. And then parsley, I'm going to put around in various vacant interstices, or however you pronounce that.
Oh, big
And then I think it
words.
needs another accent of lemon, so I'm going to put the lemon up there. And I think it could also have
This is some
Just a
retro ass
little bit of
painting.
parsley
Well, I guess it's a retro
right
ass
in the middle there.
kitchen and everything.
There. I turn down my pot here. Now that's a very simple and attractive method for doing a cold lobster. You see how quickly that sauce
I
was
bet you
made.
like friggin' Hitmon Lethal's getting like
And now for hot lobster.
flashbacks
This
to
I
me
wanna
just
show you
brushing things on the
How
ground.
to eat
Just
yourself.
meanwhile, like
if you're faced alone
those
and
who I cook
unaided
with, I am sorry.
with a boiled lobster.
To those who I'm
Nobody's ever
going to
shown
cook
you
with,
how
watch
to
out.
eat it. I think it can sometimes be embarrassing. I'm going to puncture a hole in it and drain it out first. And I think this is a good thing to do because it's a nuisance if you're going to eat a whole lobster and there's a whole lot of water that gets into your plate. So now, there that is. Perfectly. And be sure that you have a loud enough time if you have the radio or something. You'll be listening to that and you wouldn't hear that the lobster was done.
You listen to the radio. How many times did people
Go ahead and eat it.
that would have happened so many times back in the past.
Look who's come to dinner. Bertha Behemoth. She took 45 minutes to cook.
Holy shit, they killed her! They killed her!
Now,
They killed her!
be sure that you have, when you're going to eat plain boiled lobster, be sure that you have melted butter. And then for each person, have a little bowl to put the butter in. And if you're modern, have lobster shears. Otherwise, have a nutcracker and a pick, little forks, a bowl.
I need plenty of napkins too, you
Everyone
know.
has their own way to eat a lobster, but I always take off all the little legs first, and there are my hors d'oeuvre. Because while you're eating the little legs, the rest of the lobster has a time to cool off a little bit because it's good and hot.
Good and hot.
And you just twist them off, and then to eat them, you just break the joint. And
The
suck out
lobster's
the
just
meat.
like, oh, I'm so hot.
With your, and some of the very, very best meat. Well, I always seem to say that about every part of the lobster. But then, now we're going to take off the big claw and the joint. You just twist that off on each side.
Hey, Jordan, you think I can take off
and
the
then
big
break
claw and the
the
joint?
big claw from the joint, like that. And then I'll show you how to take your scissors, or if you just have a nutcracker, crack it, but the scissors are much better, and cut up each side so that you can just take the claw off. Take the shell off. And then you see you've lifted
You must
the
take
shell
off
off.
the claw, sir.
And you have this
Sir,
meat
sir,
in
please.
here. That is
Take off the claw.
delicious. My husband, he likes the big claw, and I like the claw joint, so we exchange little legs for claws. Now,
good
here's your
exchange.
big claw. That one needed a little draining.
That's how they
But
found
you got
America.
your two sides. You got your small side and your big side. Take your small side and bend it down hard at right angles. And this little cartilage has come out of the large side of the meat. And then I'm going to move this back here because it's dripping. Take your scissors and you can cut a window out from the large end.
Dude, this is so much.
Get the meat out.
Who got the
whole.
time, man?
There, see that? Then you have the small end. You can usually take out with a nut pick.
It's a tiny end.
There, that's the little one.
I'm the little one.
And now you have the tail. And just simply hold the lobster in both hands and twist. By this time, you hope it's still rather warm.
All you can do is hope,
Here you
Julia.
have some of the tamale. There's the roe. And the old Downeasterners, there's a little more row, break these tail bits off, and then they poke the meat out with their fingers. Let's see if I can get that out. This is a little
that meat out.
But you can take your finger and just poke the meat out. Well, it did.
That was lewd.
Very nice. So there's that tail.
Oh gosh. Good thing my mother doesn't have Twitch.
And also cut up through here and see if you have the intestinal vein, which we don't seem to have.
Talking
And
about
you
veins.
find eating this meat, it's just, the taste is so good. It has a, well, it's hard to describe
Yes, we can.
what the lobster
Yes, we
tastes like.
can.
It really just, it tastes like lobster. It's just like nothing else, and it's absolutely delicious. Now we have the chest part. I think I should move this over here so we can see the chest more clearly.
Yeah, we're gonna do one more video after this.
The chest has a shell, and then the chest itself.
Your boy's gonna have to
pull
try
that
to
out.
pretend to sleep.
Shell here, you have all the rest of this delicious green matter, and you also have the sand sac. Which, and you
Wait,
just
what?
scrape the tamale
Oh yeah, I
around
know.
the sand sac and any coagulated white material
Yeah, you can't be doing
add,
that.
because that also is delicious.
Twitch
eating.
is
And you also have a little more in the chest meat.
terms and conditions are different
And
than
then you have
YouTube's.
gills on the outside of
Also,
the chest, sort of spongy things
say,
that you pull off because they're not edible. And
Yeah,
then you
it's
break
different.
the chest in
There's a reason
half
Vosh is now on
lengthwise.
YouTube, and Hassan's now
And
on YouTube.
with
He's
your
on
little
Twitch though.
spoon,
These are the two guys I watch.
Little
They had 20,000 people on their last
a little
stream. I have
fork there,
3,
you have this
but you know we're starting
absolutely
off small.
delicious
So
meat
remember,
from the
little
chest,
storm
which
watchers.
is
That's what I'm gonna call you.
very, very tender.
Those
and
who
good.
know, know.
Some
'cause
people
I'm
take the
George,
whole thing and
Tornado
chew
George.
it, but I every bit of that chest meat because it's so delicious. There's not a great deal of it, but it's very, very tender. And I think, well, as I keep saying, each bit of it, it's one of the best. Now you have various ways of eating a lobster. Some people like to take all of the meat out and put
Yo,
it
are we
in the
just sitting
butter
here watching
sauce,
a woman
and
eat
other
lobster
people
right now?
like to do it
This-
bit
I
by
used to
bit,
be
but
cool.
that's your own personal
Now,
experience.
I love watching
So
lobster.
here you are with the
It can happen
how
to
to
you.
eat the hot lobster,
not even
and here is this very pretty way of doing just a plain cold boiled lobster. And here is Big Bertha, who I must say is a pleasure to see on any dining room table. And she's perfectly tender too, except for the very tips of her claws. And with it, lobster like this serve a dry white wine, an Alsatian Riesling, or
Big Bertha
so
freaking
there's your
died.
lobster story from tip to tail and hot to cold, and that's
Tip to
all
tail
for
and-
today on The French Chef. This is Julia Child. Bon appetit!
This program was made possible by a grant from Polaroid Corporation.
Okay, we got one more video. And this is back by popular demand. You guys know. Y'all ready?
What makes a great chef? Well, training, plus a great love of food, a generous personality, and the ability to invent hot chocolate truffles. Meltingly addictive hot chocolate truffles. Balls of creamy chocolate filling that are rolled in fresh crumbs. Let's have another piece. As long as the dough is relaxed, it's ready to roll. Ready to roll. Let's have another piece. All in a ball. Ready to roll. Ready to roll. Freshness is essential. That makes all the difference. I like to smell something cooking. Makes me feel it.
is what good cooking is all about. This is what good cooking is all about. Filling and the sweet topping, all on that crisp pastry. You can't define these in a recipe. You can only know them. By knowing how the food should taste. The blend of oil, fresh lime juice, pressed ginger, and fish sauce. You need some fat in your diet, or your body can't process your vitamins. Freshness is essential. That makes all the difference. I like to smell something cooking. Makes me feel it. Bring on the roasted potatoes. Bring on the bourgeois. This is what good cooking is all about. This is what good cooking is all about. Cook and keep on cooking. This is the way to live. Cook and keep on cooking. This is the way to eat. Bon appetit. Test of a good chef is a perfectly roasted chicken. The lemons, the garlic, the rosemary, butter-free, rosemary, full, rich and creamy, suspended in its sauce. You have to watch it. Don't let it cook too long. Heat it up a little bit just to soften it. Fast and tough and rough. I'm just going to show you how you do it. Heat it up a little bit, just to soften it. Chop it, fold it, roll it, chop it, fast and tough and rough. Freshness is essential. That makes all the difference. I like to smell something cooking. Makes me feel it. Bring on the roasted potatoes. Bring on the bourgeois. This is what good cooking is all about. Cook and keep on cooking. This is the way to live. Cook and keep on cooking. Everyone gather around the dinner table. Cook and keep on cooking. This is the way to live. Cook and keep on cooking. This is the way to eat. Bon appetit.
Yeah, that was fucking beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a little glassy there, guys. Yo, bon appetit, guys. See you, little storm chasers. If you're looking for the stream, I'm gonna put it up on my YouTube channel, George Avard. You can see it there. You can follow me on Instagram. I know that there's a few people here, but I just gotta practice saying this, you know. Yeah, that was the first one. That felt good.